can, but we don't have the political will. We don't have enough guns to protect it, basically. Like, just to give you the plain truth. But can we create an economy as the economy was in our Islamic history, in some of its bright curves? Discuss the curve of Islamic history up and down next time. The curve, in some of its peaks, most of the economy and the economic activity was actually around awqaf. Some researchers had come up with a number in some points in the Egyptian history, in the Ottoman history at some point, and so forth. That's a number like 70% of the economic activity is around awqaf. So hospitals are awqaf, schools are awqaf, mosques are awqaf, water, wells, and some water supplies are awqaf. But we can say, but in the modern state, this is the business of the government. No, but the government is not providing you that. The government is allowing the companies to provide you that. And that's a different economy. So if we can envision an economy in which people donate, not for everything, for the basic rights of humanity. Al-Huquq al-Asasiyya, we discussed that theory, the theory of huquq. So in Islam, the human being has to have something to wear, something to eat, something to drink. The human being has to have a shelter, a roof over their heads. The human being in Islam has a right to marry if they want to get married, or are capable physically and morally and maturity-wise to get married. They have a right in Islam. They have a right for medication. If they fall sick, they cannot just die on the street. This is Islam. And if they die on the street, or they go hungry until they die on the street, the Prophet ﷺ says, بَرِئَ ذِمَّةُ اللَّهِ مِنْهُمْ. Allah disowns a district where somebody dies because nobody is helping them. You know, and we see that, unfortunately, in our, especially Muslim majority societies and Muslim communities in minority societies, where people die because they are hungry. And that could work with capitalism, but doesn't work with Islam. You know, Islam doesn't have that. And therefore, your question is a good question, but I'm not the person who's qualified to answer it, because you need a composite framework. You need a sophisticated approach. You ask me about, let's say, again, I spoke a little bit about genetic engineering, because I was doing research for one of the Majama' al-Fiqhiyya, the Fiqh councils. I'm not a specialized person. I didn't study medicine. But because I studied science, I might be a little bit qualified to understand the language that they use, the genetic. And when I studied science, I studied neuroscience. So because I studied that in my background, I'm capable probably to understand the language. That's why I delved into this, and I tried to help the Fiqh Council that I was advising on that. Because otherwise, as somebody who studied Islamic law, we don't study what qualifies us to deal with that. I mean, my study from the Quran and the Mutun and Bukhari, all the way to Fiqh al-Mu'asir, even the contemporary fiqh that our ustads have taught us, they don't have that. We can't. The question of artificial intelligence today is a huge question, because these governments, they want to put chips in human beings. They tell you that's instead of your credit card. So you never forget your credit card and so on. And some societies in Europe, Sweden and so on, they started to do that with their citizens. They start to put chips in them. And they're happy. And they make parties when he has his chips. No more credit cards, no more wallets. It's just him. And now he's putting the chip and he's opening the doors and paying the grocery. And they don't understand that this is so idiotic. With all due respect, I didn't mention names already. But this is, you know what the Chinese are doing with artificial intelligence in West China, where there are Muslim majorities. They are watching what every person is doing. There are more than one report about that now. There are very little reports about what China is doing. But now more than one report. They're giving a number to each person. And each person has a credit. You know, the credit that you have here with credit cards, they give you a credit card for 1,000 rand or 100,000, depending on your credit. In in China, with this province of the Uyghur, the credit is how good behavior you have, how much of a good citizen you are. And therefore, every time you do something naughty, you participate in a protest, you read Quran, you go to a mosque, you lose credit. And then after some time, your chip or your number, now they didn't put chips under the skin so far, but your number and you have your ID might not allow you to even ride on the bus or buy grocery if your ID is not, you don't have the right score, right? And that is part of the world order now, that they are. So artificial intelligence is used in an incredible way now to manage people. And because they can't manage all of these millions. So the Chinese are making robots govern these societies. If on your ID you don't have enough credit and you're not a good citizen enough, and you go to the mosque too often and this and that, you can't even go on the bus because the artificial intelligence program will tell you you're not qualified. Error here.
Please.
Right? So you can expect that the society is going to change in a major way when we start having these chips under our skins, and governments are proving day after day that they are not benign. Some governments are more benign than others. I hope you have as benign a government here as you could get. But governments are not benign. East and West. I'm not just talking about the tyrants in the Arab world. I'm talking about America as well. This is happening in Sweden where they put the thing under people's skin. And then eventually, if the days and nights change and they have a different system, that person, because they have this chip under the skin, they cannot buy food and they cannot go anywhere. They might as well die. So I just gave a few examples I mentioned in the notes anyway about the need of a composite and a complex approach, and that approaching Islam through the history books or only through the dimension of the narrow legal questions is detrimental to Islam, because the narrow legal questions we all ask about the ibadat and about some of the mu'amalat and about issues of marriage and divorce and witnesses and this and riba and on an individual level. I want to be free from sin. So I ask, and many people ask me in the sense of education. So every day I continue to answer questions that are really, there is a difference between fatwa for education and fatwa for what we call in nawazil, or the big issues, the big events, the new phenomena. I can give fatwa for education, but the new phenomena I'm not qualified to give most of the fatwas. I work on methodology anyway for people who are going to give fatwas. But we need much more than an individual fatwa. We need a collective fatwa. We need a fatwa for the ummah. How to deal with the current wars that are waged on humanity in the name of technology, in the name of law, in the name of politics and democracy and human rights and freedom and all of this. In the name of these, there are wars that are waged against humanity, and people are literally dying because of these policies that we think are benign. Health policies, environmental policies, politics of some party. And when you are trained to give individual fatwa, you are not qualified simply to tackle these issues. You need specialists. And that's where multidisciplinarity comes in. That's why you come from different disciplines, and we require that in this program anyway, as humble as it is, as a beginning. But we are requiring that so that you can build yourself as a scholar. If you are an engineer, don't live in two worlds. The world when you enter your company and the world when you come to IPSA. Or if you are a lawyer, there is law that you do, and then when you come to IPSA, you have a different outlook to life. Or your hospital, or your bank, or whatever. No, you have to think, how can the hospital be Islamic? I gave a lecture in Kuala Lumpur Islamic Hospital recently. And I asked them a question. It was a room full of doctors and nurses, alhamdulillah. I told them, okay, so this is the Islamic hospital. What do you mean by the Islamic hospital? And then you start to get the answer that we have a supply of Zamzam water. Everyone that comes in, he gets a sibha and a carpet to pray on. And we have pre-death counseling or palliative counseling, which is huge, sure. And okay, I asked them a question. If somebody poor comes into the hospital, do you have a fund for that? They said only for nationals, but not for non-nationals. Oh, I said, but that's not Islamic. You know, I am Muslim, I'm not from your nationality. I came and I'm going to die. Unfortunately, they have to die. Oh well, but that's not Islamic. See, this is the discussion. So what is the Islamic hospital? Is it Quran everywhere and people who read and so forth? This is all good. But what is that approach to medicine that we're talking about? From the affordability of medicine all the way to the kinds of medicine that we give people. And the approach itself to the human being. The human being is what? Is a machine that you can replace and so forth, and you just minimize. If you go by the utilitarian philosophy, then yes, before somebody dies, you can take their heart and put in a different heart, because he's probably going to die. But, you know, you might not be dead yet. And recently, big debate in